Jamin AI. Jamin AI.
On Holy Monday, we remember the story where Jesus got hangry and cursed a fig tree to death for not having any figs on it, despite the fact that it wasn't the time of year where it should have had figs. But what appears at first to be a hilarious story soon becomes serious. We see the deeper meaning going on in Mark's typical sandwich writing technique. This gospel writer loves to start a story, stick another story in the middle of it, and then return to his original story after in order to make a point. In the case of this sandwich, a fig tree is cursed, then Jesus flips the tables of the temple in Jerusalem, and then he returns to find the fig tree withered, helping us to see that Jesus' hanger is more than just physical, it's spiritual too. Jerusalem was at one point the spiritual capital of the cosmos, Mount Zion, where God dwelt. It was supposed to be a garden full of spiritual fruit for all the world to marvel at and taste. But instead of becoming a fruitful garden, the spiritual cosmos had become a religious business center full of profit, corruption, and hypocrisy. Jerusalem was the fig tree, and despite all of its activity, it was fruitless. But while this mountain would be cast into the sea and wither and be destroyed, as Jesus prophesied elsewhere, the temple of Jesus' body would flourish. And those who truly live for Jesus will bear fruit for him and be pruned to grow even more fruit, while those who don't will be cut off. May our lives be fruitful this Holy Monday.
Woke up hungry, walked the road, saw a fig tree, nothing showed. Leaves were dancing, but no feast. Not the season, but still no peace. What looked alive was empty inside. A symbol standing tall, withered pride. No fruit on the tree, no life in the leaves. Like a temple built on hollow beliefs. He flipped the table, shook the ground, spoke to a mountain, watched it drown. Oh, Jerusalem, can't you see? You were supposed to feed the world like a tree.
In between the curse and cracks, he walked the courts, turned them back. Coins were falling, silence loud, sacred space lost in the crowd. Garden dreams, but prophet schemes, where worship died in business themes. No fruit on the tree, no life in the leaves. Like a temple built on hollow beliefs. He flipped the table, shook the ground, spoke to a mountain, watched it drown. Oh, Jerusalem, can't you see? You were supposed to feed the world like a tree.
There's a temple made of flesh and bone, a body raised, a garden grown, and those who live in him will bloom. But fruitless hearts will face their doom.
No fruit on the tree, no life in the leaves, but a new vine grows for all who believe. He flips our hearts' tears, walls down, lifts us up from broken ground. Oh, Spirit, come and dwell in me, make my life a fruitful tree.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're digging into a story from the Bible that can seem a bit strange on the surface, Jesus and a fig tree.
Yeah, it's one of those moments that makes you pause.
Exactly. But we're looking at it through the lens of a really insightful blog post by Jamin Bradley called Jesus' Fig Sandwich.
Ah, yes, Bradley. He's got quite the background: pastor, theologian, musician.
Author, self-described nerd, and, interestingly, exorcist. So quite a mix.
Definitely. And his post from back in April 2022 takes this fig tree incident and unpacks it in a fascinating way.
Right. So our mission today is basically to explore Bradley's analysis, figure out what he sees in this story from Holy Monday, and, uncover the deeper meaning he finds there.
Because it's not just about a tree, is it? What seems maybe minor or even a bit odd.
Like Jesus getting hangry.
Yeah, that's the initial, maybe slightly humorous take, isn't it? That he just got mad because he wanted a snack.
Totally. You read it and think, okay, so Jesus was hungry. The tree had no figs. He cursed it. Maybe feels a little harsh or just weird.
But Bradley pushes past that really quickly. He points to how the story is told, specifically in Mark's gospel.
Okay, what about it?
He highlights Mark's writing style. Bradley calls it the sandwich technique. You heard of this?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where Mark starts a story, puts another one in the middle, and then finishes the first one?
Exactly that, like putting filling between two slices of bread. And the point is often in how the bread and the filling relate to each other. It creates connections.
Oh, okay. So how does that sandwich structure work with the fig tree? What's the bread? What's the filling?
Well, the first slice of bread is Jesus seeing the fig tree and cursing it for having no fruit.
Right.
Then the filling Mark inserts this really dramatic scene. Jesus goes into the temple in Jerusalem, causes a huge commotion, flips the tables of the money changers, the whole temple cleansing incident.
Okay. That's a big scene.
Huge. And then the second slice of bread. The narrative goes back to the fig tree, and the disciples see it has completely withered away.
Wow. Okay. So putting the temple cleansing right inside the fig tree story. That's definitely intentional. Mark's making a link.
Precisely. Bradley argues that this structure is the key. Jesus' issue with the tree, his hanger, wasn't just physical, it was spiritual.
Spiritual hunger. Or disappointment.
Yeah, both, perhaps. Bradley connects the lack of fruit on the tree to a lack of spiritual fruit in Jerusalem itself.
Okay, tell me more about that. Jerusalem's significance.
Well, you have to remember what Jerusalem represented. It was supposed to be the spiritual heart, Mount Zion, God's dwelling place. The expectation was it should be like a vibrant garden.
A spiritual garden.
Yeah, full of spiritual fruit, nourishment for the whole world. That was the ideal.
But that wasn't the reality Jesus found, according to Bradley.
Not at all. Bradley paints a picture of Jerusalem having become more like a religious business center.
Oof. What does he mean by that? Profit over piety.
Pretty much. He talks about profit, corruption, hypocrisy, suggesting the temple system had lost its way. It had the outward appearance, maybe like the leafy fig tree.
All leaves.
All leaves, exactly. But no actual fruit. The substance was missing.
So the fig tree becomes a symbol, a potent one. It looks like it should be productive, but it's barren inside. Just like, in Bradley's view, the religious establishment in Jerusalem.
You got it. That's the connection Bradley makes.
Which means Jesus cursing the tree wasn't just a random act of frustration. It was symbolic, a judgment.
Bradley sees it absolutely as a prophetic act, a symbolic judgment. Just as that tree withered, so would the fruitless system in Jerusalem.
Wow.
He links it directly to Jesus' own words later about the destruction of this mountain, meaning Jerusalem and its temple. It was a sign.
Okay, that's a heavy message. The withering of the old system. But Bradley doesn't just leave it there, does he? There's a positive side. Something about a new temple.
Yes, exactly. That's crucial. The judgment on the fruitless system, the withering, makes way for something new. He talks about the flourishing of the temple of Jesus' body.
Which is a huge shift, isn't it? From a physical building to Jesus himself.
A fundamental shift. The focus moves from a place, the stone temple, to a person, Jesus, and by extension, to all those who follow him.
So we become the temple, in a sense.
That's the implication. Followers of Jesus are now meant to be where God's presence dwells and is expressed in the world. And how is it expressed? Through bearing spiritual fruit. That's the contrast to the barren fig tree.
Right, so it comes down to the individual level then. It's not just ancient history or religious politics.
Not at all. Bradley brings it right down to us. He says those living for Jesus, connected to him, will bear fruit. It's a natural outcome.
And he mentions pruning too, right? Prune to grow even more fruit. What's that about? Sounds a bit painful.
Well, pruning can be, can't it? But it's done to make the plant healthier and more fruitful in the long run. So Bradley suggests that maybe life's challenges, the difficulties we face, can actually serve to refine our faith, cutting away the unproductive bits so we can grow stronger, more resilient. bear more fruit.
That makes sense, a refining process. But what about the alternative? What if someone doesn't bear fruit?
Bradley's quite stark about that, drawing directly from the imagery. Just like the fruitless fig tree was cursed and withered, those who profess faith but show no evidence of it, who are all leaves and no substance, well, the implication is they'll be cut off.
That's sobering. It really puts a different spin on Holy Monday, doesn't it? It's not just remembering an event, but a call to self-examination.
Absolutely. Bradley concludes with that kind of call, urging reflection on living a fruitful life, especially during Holy Week.
So when he talks about spiritual fruit, what does that look like practically? It's not literal figs, obviously. What kind of things are we talking about?
Good question. It's likely things like, the classic fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, but also actions: compassion, seeking justice, acts of service, forgiveness.
So how we treat people, how we live out our faith in tangible ways.
Exactly. It's the outward evidence of an inward reality. It's about reflecting the character of Jesus in our interactions and contributing positively to the world, not just, showing up for religious services. It's about substance.
Okay, so let's try and sum up Bradley's interpretation here. He takes the fig tree story, which seems odd.
Maybe even problematic at first glance.
Right. And he shows it's actually this incredibly deliberate symbolic act by Jesus, by using Mark's sandwich structure linking the tree to the temple cleansing. He argues it's a judgment on the religious establishment in Jerusalem that looked okay on the outside but was spiritually barren, corrupt inside.
Like the leafy but fruitless tree.
Exactly. And this symbolic judgment points toward the end of that old system and the beginning of something new, centered on Jesus himself.
A new temple.
A new temple embodied by Jesus and then by those who follow him, who are called to live genuinely fruitful lives.
That captures it well. It's really about the contrast between outward religious performance and genuine fruit-bearing faith. A timeless tension, really.
It really is. Bradley's analysis gives you a lot to think about, doesn't it? It turns a potentially confusing passage into something quite pointed and relevant.
It certainly does. It challenges that surface-level reading and asks us to look deeper, both at the text and perhaps at ourselves.
Which leads perfectly to that final thought, perhaps. If Bradley's right about this, then it really prompts a question for anyone listening, doesn't it? Thinking about Bradley's interpretation. What does that spiritual fruit actually look like in your own life right now?
That's the core of it. How are you cultivating that? What does it mean for you to be, as Bradley might put it, a flourishing temple in the world, bearing real fruit? Something to definitely reflect on.
Jamin AI. Jamin AI.